So yesterday we had talked about something. Yesterday we had talked about something, as in we stopped here on representation and participation, right? And today we will be completing this theme as well as the theme of politics in transition when we are speaking about the state in comparative perspective. Okay, but before I complete those themes, there is a strong demand of an interesting brief discussion that we may have on recent developments in Afghanistan. You all are familiar or at least heard of what happened in Afghanistan recently. That is a matter of big political interest, right? So in that case, please, the class has started. So first of all, I want to engage actively and involve online students as well. Offline students have demanded it, but if online students don't contribute, we'll have to give up on the discussion. The moment they solve, I'll turn to the class. Yeah, they have to speak. They don't speak. No, it's not a privilege, but they have to speak. If they don't speak, then there is no discussion.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I can tell them to speak, but they are not here physically. True, but then sovereign can also implement their authority in a particular way, not in a forceful way. Coercive, no coercive power of the state. So all of you here who are present online, Aditi, Angela, Avni, Brijen, Dikshita, Gauri, Malvisha,
Yes,
Manas,
sir.
Matilda, Mudit, Nidhi, Ram,
Yes, sir.
Raman, Sanya, Shreya, Tushar, Vanshika, and Yashi. From any of you who would like to first just state a basic fact or a basic statement on what happened in Afghanistan recently. Please, Aditya, we have started the class. Why are you busy talking to him still? So who would like to start with that basic statement on what happened recently? First, the online students, and then I'll turn to offline because offline are sitting right here. Yashi, I can see you unmute yourself. What happened there recently?
So Afghanistan is taken over by Talibans, and Talibans are encroaching upon the lives of the people there every day. Till yesterday, there was the Kabul that they occupied and taking over. And the US is interfering in between that, helping Afghanistan or telling the Taliban to spare the particular place. So basically the territorial encroachment is there.
Yeah, so it's about territory, as you mentioned, which is part of the state. Taliban forces occupying the territory, not just physically, but also from a state power point of view. We always speak about state power and state politics, right? So them taking control over, or also as we say, seizing control, seizing power, SEIZING, you might have heard this word in international relations also, seizing power. So so that, as Yashi mentioned, that but in which way is US taking this opportunity? Would one of you like to respond? Well, as Yashi mentioned, that now US is interfering. So US is interfering in what way? What will happen? Do you think anything will happen now?
Taliban has been there since 9/11. Right? They have been trying to capture it for years now. Since Joe Biden comes, yes, it is not even a full, it is not more than even a couple of years. The Taliban gains, Achanakly, they gain immense power to capture an entire city in the night. 10 cities were captured in the night. Now, how do we think that the military gains that power? We all know that there has to be certain political parties, political actors, that is world domination involved in this particular case. Similarly, Taliban had ties with Hamas. Leaders met with Hamas. Now, US, as we have clearly seen that they have had earlier problem with Palestine. Now, this clearly joins the link, and Joe Biden is not someone who will, he is the leader of the most, glorified country of the world, right? America. Now, suddenly they start withdrawing their troops instead of retaliating, doesn't make any sense.
And if you notice, China has openly supported this change of power
Yes.
that is happening in favor of Taliban. Maybe all online students didn't hear you, but what Aditya just mentioned is about the fact that at an international political level, the contacts and the links that Taliban has established. So that was going on over a period of time with political parties in that Arab-Israel conflict, the Hamas.
The saddest part in this particular, the whole thing is that whenever such things happen, whenever the territory has been occupied and the people suffered there, nobody consider that particular thing, but there is a huge politics that surround that particular situation. The one who supports will support them. The one who doesn't support, they don't support them. So nobody sees what the situation, what the sufferings the civilians faced when such things happen. But the people and the countries have their own justification and their own reasons to support and not support a particular group. So there is a whole, the international politics come in between. So such things happen in every case. Even if we see the Israel-Palestine Palestine situation, that in that also we can see that some countries are supporting, there is a groupism, there is a division. Some countries are supporting, some countries are not supporting. So nobody sees what the actual situation is there, but that's why we have the concept of recognition. Some people recognize, some countries recognize, some countries don't recognize, and when they recognize, they have their international rules. So such situations happen every time whenever such things happen. So we can have debate and we can have numerous examples, but there is clearly a politics that surrounds whenever such situation, whenever such massacre situation arises. So sometimes it's just in the news. We can just read that this country is supporting, this country is not supporting. So there is a whole...
Yeah, so as you rightly mentioned, it is quite about politics of recognition as well. But as Aditya mentioned, suddenly capturing and getting onto power in simultaneously all the cities, overnight kind of situation, there had already been a lot of background work going on in there. If they did not get international support from parties like Hamas, and also from, why do you think, of course, they were in touch with political power in China as well. It's not just about Hamas actually. Why would suddenly China come out in the open that yes, we are? So that is one. And what Yashi, you mentioned is more about internal changes that are going on within the country. As comparative politics also deals with external versus the internal. So what Aditya mentioned just a few minutes ago are the external factors, and what you are referring to is internal factors. When we are talking about recognition, when we are talking about identity, how can they capture power if they don't get support of the masses, support of the people? That's another thing. Of course, that a voice of dissent can also be suppressed if there is a protest, or if there is any kind of any form of dissent that is being reflected upon there. But in a country like Afghanistan, that wouldn't happen. That's another thing. Yes, that's another thing, because they know in an aggressive way, like state also acts on its aggression. That way, definitely Taliban would be much more aggressive as compared to the National Security Forces of Afghanistan, which was just a government and which was just a normal. Now another issue is, and another question that arises, which is a core question of comparative as well as IR, is that what will happen to Afghanistan's relations with each of the countries now? There are embassies there, there are consulates there, there is staff there, there is Indian ambassador to Afghanistan, there is all the countries. It is also from United Nations, it's a no family posting, but still people are posted there. Okay, so what will happen thereafter to them? Now, how will that get affected? What will Taliban do to increase, if it wants to, its international, because after all, in entire international affairs is also seen as a kind of domination. Like during Cold War, we had seen United States on one side, the US bloc, and USSR on the other side, the Soviet bloc. Now, in order to confront that dominant position which United States had been enjoying, now maybe less, one is always very conscious and wary of the situation that what are the parallel forces which are coming up against it, that include forces like China, that include forces like Taliban. So it's not like Taliban as a merely terror group, as a merely aggressive group, etc. Now it will also occupy another position of forming a core gang of people. Now US will definitely come closer to countries like India, because see, all these power equations change in state. In Unit 4, we have a topic, you know, called the security state. This is what you call the security state. How do you act upon the security state, right? I don't know which source of news also you looked into, BBC, CNN, there is Al Jazeera, not CNN. CNN is entirely a US thing. BBC is a UK thing, but still it presents news differently as so that's CNN. Yes. So I think one of the lectures, Yashi had also raised this question about media and politics. How international media, that's another question that can be raised. How international media is projecting these incidents, how Al Jazeera is projecting it, how BBC is projecting it, how our own Indian media is projecting it. There is a difference between NDTV projecting it, and there is a difference between India TV or Aaj Tak or Zee TV or all of these Zee News, the way they are presenting. But then what do you think would be the future? Now with this change, what will happen to the society there? What will happen to the life there? Because even when I was like in my school days, Taliban incidents always had been, there were a lot of Buddha statues there, I remember. There were a lot of Buddha statues which were systematically demolished and destroyed by the Taliban. Okay, if you Google the term, there is a place in Afghanistan called Bamiyan. BAMI. We don't have any Afghani student, no, in our, we have in the hostel a lot of them. Yes, I'm wondering how are they, what are they going through, because this major change that happened. Any reflection of out of the conversation you had with them? What was like, what do you think? Can you tell me their view if you talked to them? Like,
the only thing is that they are saying that whatsoever the Taliban is doing is going to take over the Afghanistan, what was Afghanistan 200 years ago. And this is the Taliban is going to do it.
Yeah, the way country was 2 centuries ago. Yeah.
And
okay.
So they have a highlight and discussion, and before that I also read about the history and what is happening there. So many people say that Taliban was the creation of America, because America was sponsored Taliban. But when the 2001 attack, 9/11 attack takes place, then America started waging war against the Taliban, and they stopped the Taliban from coming into the power in Afghanistan.
There was a US war in Afghanistan even.
After then, America has adopted a neutral policy against the Afghanistan, and the Joe Biden was one of the finest examples to admit here.
Hmm.
And after the Taliban has been sponsored by many groups, and America was doing nothing at there.
Hmm.
And that is why it is a powerful state-sponsored war that was based against the established government in the Afghanistan. So more appropriately, we have to say they are the belligerent group, not the terrorist group. Because after the 9/11, they are the terrorist group. But before that, we know that there was Soviet Union and America. Now, when the Soviet Union was united, when there was no disintegration, then there was a communism in Afghanistan. And America was not successful in sponsoring anything. But when the Russia separated and all the nations which are there separated, then they started emerging. And after that, they did not get any kind of help, any sort of help from the Soviet Union, so that we can establish the communism. And establishing communism was somewhat really affecting the America to establish the capitalism. There. This is the whole
Yes, you quite rightly reflected the Cold War situation.
Yeah.
So what Afghanistan was even during the Cold War situation, what were the internal changes that were happening in the politics of the country during those Cold War years? Okay, and then of course US waged a war in there. US has had a long relation with Afghanistan in many ways. Like US has had its own interests in Iraq, in Syria, with the Islamic State, and the waging wars. And of course, one pretext is the oil reserves that they have there, because US is always eyeing from a selfish economic point of view and financial point of view those oil reserves. In Afghanistan, yes, in Afghanistan, the story had been still somewhat different. Because Afghanistan has been seen as a strong territory, and that's where geopolitics comes into the scene. It has a strong and large border with Pakistan, actually, but they are not really in good relations. They have not been in good relations. In fact, Afghanistan still had good relations with India until Taliban is now in power. Now Taliban might have, and now that will change the.
Yesterday, the spokesperson of Taliban has met the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So we can understand what's happening.
Yeah, now they will come closer. That will affect India's position in geopolitics of Asia, because Pakistan and China have always been collaborating against India. Yeah, one by one, so that I can listen to you. You were saying something.
I was just saying that the first thing that they did internationally as soon as they assumed the power of those 10 cities, the outskirts of Kabul, was if they opened the borders that were sealed by the Afghan government, Taliban, Pakistan government. Right. The second thing, Afghanistan is the only landlocked country in the world. There is no sea in the nearby area.
Yes.
China used to supply the systems of ports.
Yes.
And so this way, apart from being political and state power, there is also the theme of economic affairs. So now we have three enemies beside us with no help from Russia, because Russia ultimately supports us from backside only. They usually the back players. They don't say that every country, including America, usually says that
Russia has always occupied a backstage position in most of the events. They never come to the forefront. But they are always playing it smart. Still, they are always evaluating, weighing options, and then taking. They still don't take a stand. That's another thing.
Even we have not taken a stand.
Yeah, we have not yet taken a stand. But then the thing is, and another aspect is that how society, lifestyle, culture will change of the citizen. Because as I told you, the way I have grown up, I have that image of Taliban that destroys any other sect, faith, belief, and worship. And that's very clear. That has got nothing to do with Islam. Taliban may not and should not be equated with Islam. That's another misconception. Of course, it's a big misconception. That is deliberately they have done that, so that they feel there are many Islamic states which do not still support them, which are not in favor of them. So they have factions and divisions within them. For example, China follows a completely different ideology, communist. It has got nothing to do with state religion, but only because now what are the factors where they are getting together? Because and those factors are this tendency of a dictatorial rule. This is increasingly challenging the democratic transitions and democratic traditions that had been carrying on or have been going on. But apart from Yashi, anyone else wants to say anything? Yes. Yes.
They don't want to seem to be violent at international level, so they use Taliban.
Are the rest of you following the discussion? No one wants to say anything, or any view, or anything that you did not understand? Or did you understand everything? I'm asking this to all of you, apart from Yashi, who are present, supposedly present actually. I must use that
Yes,
word.
sir, we are following. We understand.
Yes, yes, Angela?
Yes, we are understanding, sir.
Okay, do you get the debate that's going on
Yeah.
on the recent changes in Afghanistan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? Are you getting the points that we are discussing here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So far
Aditi?
it's
So,
followed.
I mean, whatever the
Just a
discussion
second.
happening, we are not able to hear that.
Yashi, what did you say?
So, I mean, the voice is not audible whenever some discussion takes place there.
Yeah, you can't hear your classmates, but if you can hear me well, I'm just telling their views. I'm as part of the discussion. I'm only speaking their views again, because they are sitting a bit away, so you can't. Aditi, you were saying something.
Yes, sir. I was not able to understand one thing. If
Yeah.
Taliban has taken over the place, how the people are still evacuating through aeroplanes and all? Because if they have taken over, this won't happen. I'm not able to understand that thing.
Okay, that's another nature of the question that you asked, which could be applicable to any country and any society or context, Aditi. Whenever transition happens, inevitably evacuation does happen. Inevitably, there is a movement of people. Aditi's question is, I think yesterday some photos were also, some pictures were getting circulated. You saw the kind of rush. Now, Aditi's question, she's not able to get it. Who are those people and why are they fleeing and why are they running away?
No,
Like-
sir. How is it happening? Because Taliban would be there as well, na?
Yeah. She's asking, what she's asking is, if Taliban is there, that how is it possible that they can even run away rather than not being forced to stay? Just let Ronak answer your question. He has something in his mind. I'll speak out his answer. Let me see what he says.
So right now, what the Taliban wanted to show in the international community, that we want a peaceful handover of the power. And for the sake of that, he's taking back the people who are wishing to go there in the country. Even India has sent his aeroplane to pull out the people who are there. But it is the Taliban again, the diplomacy that let us have the peaceful transfer of power.
Yes.
And we know that what was happened with the president of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
He flew back from there.
Yeah.
So that was the reason.
That is one, Aditya.
Basically, the insurgents or the belligerent status that Taliban still exists has to be converted and has to be recognized at international level so that they can establish the government. Now, apart from getting recognition, they need a peaceful transition of the political power that has been endowed to them. Because on one end, you see the Afghanistan president has already fled, right? To Oman or whatever the hell they are saying. Right? Now, secondly, since they are now alone, they have to show that even though the Afghan president has left the citizen of his own country, he has had to ensure that the citizens who are not willing to stay reach peacefully. So they have to ensure until they get recognition.
There are 2 points mentioned here. I'm just, as Ronak mentioned, that it's the same Taliban which is exercising a sort of diplomacy in international relations, and these both points are connected. In order to get you recognized better, in order to enhance your status of state recognition better, you still need to follow basic international values, standards, and norms. That's what you're also doing in international humanitarian laws. There are certain basic values, norms, ethics, codes of conduct, so many things. And following that, so Aditi has a question because the way Taliban's image has been reproduced over a period of time, but now that Taliban is in control of state power, it's not the same thing anymore. Yeah, they're not butchers anymore. That's like quite a statement. It's a good statement. They're not butchers anymore.
They are going to be like a government there. So they have just displaced the government over there, and now as they are getting the power of a government, they are doing such things and following the international norms and rules.
Yeah, so it's like them not being, they are not in the same shoes. They are not fitting into the same shoes as they were. You mentioned, no, what is the party that they have called now? Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan, IEA. They are planning to name it like that, Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan. So even they are changing inherently the nature of their organization. Even if they are the same core Taliban who had destroyed Bamiyan Buddha's statue, and not just that, they have done so much. I mean, there are countless number of casualties, civilians, deaths, bombings. Yes, so many incidents that have been marked by violence, destruction, and devastation. Right? Aditi, did you get the point?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Others, Raman, Mudit, are you following the discussion today? Mudit, it's your second class.
Yes, sir.
Is it better for you today? I guess you can understand more what's going on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please finalize your topic. I didn't receive from you.
Okay, sir.
Take my WhatsApp from Aditi or Raman, and please WhatsApp me your topic today of the project.
Okay, sir, I will.
So since we are speaking about politics in transition, we analyze major challenges that are reshaping the world, which occupy a central part of study. Actually, this theme is related to what we have been discussing. You also want to say anything, or your understanding? No? Political challenges and changing agendas. Now, this very clearly grasps what Taliban has itself been going through. Changing agendas and political challenges, which identify major unresolved issues facing the country and assess which will likely dominate in the near future. Politics in comparative perspective highlights implications of the country for the study of comparative politics. This is the point that I had already mentioned yesterday. But coming back to this fourth theme, which I think Yashi just read out yesterday, if you look at the case study of Afghanistan at the moment, even if Taliban is changing the nature of, like it has indulged in diplomacy, it has indulged, as Yashi pointed out, formation of government. There is something called a government. It is the same government and government structure that Taliban had been attacking, not just in Afghanistan, but so many parts of the world. So now if you look at these features, which are basically essential features of democracy as well, now let's say, how do they configure within any state or political system? Representation participation, as we call it, describes the relationship between state and society. How do groups organize, participate, get represented, and influence policy making? Now, when we look at the internal domestic politics of the country, how are they actually working rather than not superficially? One thing is, in the beginning, they need to go through this peaceful transition of power, movement of people, whoever, Indians, if they want to go back to India, they may go, you feel free. I mean, because they said it will be a peaceful transition, peaceful change. But then what next? Will there be space for voices? Will there be certain kind of representation? Will there be any role of the people who can also participate in policy making? These are far-fetched ideals. Aditya said promises, yes, which we may also call as far-fetched ideals. Far-fetched ideals, as in which look good to hear, but really difficult to fulfill the promises which have been made. Far-fetched ideals. Far-fetched ideals, right? Legislature describes this goes for any legislature. Even in India, we have state legislature, we have central legislature. Now, this is an essential fabric of a democracy which describes representation of interests and its role in policy making. One may always question how good your MLA or MP is representing you, your constituency, member of legislative assembly or member of parliament. So legislature is really important in a parliamentary democracy that we have here in India, as well as that we have in the UK. Unlike the one that we have in France, which is presidential, or in the United States of America. Political parties and party system describe the organization of the party system and major parties. What is their role? We did parties and party system in Indian government and politics. What is their role? What is their aims and objectives? Now here, and I think some of you are doing projects on that, you have to make comparison of political parties, not within a country, but across the countries. For example, if you even take the ruling party in India, and if you take the ruling party in United States of America, what is the difference in their manifestos? What is the difference in their agendas? And those differences are reflected in their particular contexts. Yes, priorities in United States would be very different than priorities in India. In India, there are many other priorities still from a development point of view. We speak of development in India. I mean, if you travel in any part of Gujarat, Maharashtra, anywhere, pandemic is another thing. But then you always see, I mean, many people who even come to that day, the advocates who were here, they were surprised by the way Rajkot has grown, not just 5 years, even in the last 2 years. The way you are from here. So in countries like ours, that is prioritized over other concerns as well. Because the shape and the nature of the economy is on a different tangent and direction altogether. That's one. Okay, in US would be different, in Canada would be different, in Singapore would be different. Elections describe the election process. This is unit 3. Recent trends in electoral behavior. Significance of elections for participation and change. Yeah, I think some of you are doing this topic on proportional representation and other kinds. So how fairly do elections represent the people, represent the population, represent the and when we are talking about the election process, how well do we ensure, and I think proportional representation has always uncovered loopholes in the way we have election process, even in India. Even when any party comes to power, if you look at quantitative terms, it is actually less than a majority. I mean, because see, there is a voter turnout, and then because the population of the country is huge, still many are not registered voters, not all of them at all, not just all of them, many are not. And out of those who are registered, then the data comes that out of those who are registered, you know, this aspect of voter turnout that we did. Okay, so that is the interiors, that is the working of election process, which is ensuring. In United States, it's different. In United States, we have at the state level, and state level is a very important level. So even all the campaigning is focused just at the state level. We will discuss this when we compare all these systems in unit 2 and 3. In United States, the federal is really a strong one. It's not a quasi-federal. You remember? Huh? Absolute would be not that wrong. However, absolute is really an extreme end. There is nothing like absolute, but it is closer to absolute. It is still much more federal than Canada, or then Canada is more like a confederal. You remember that class we did? India quasi-federal, Canada confederal, CON, and United States of America is the real federal state. Absolute is like absolute truth. There is nothing beyond that. But then there is no absolute truth. That's the point. Political culture, citizenship, and identity. Now look at these words. Political culture, citizenship, identity examines how people perceive themselves as members of the political community, nature and sources of political values and attitudes, how different groups understand their relationship to the state. We are really focusing here on group identity, group ethics. Now the point is, and that's a very tricky point, are we looking at them in a healthy way or in a divisive way? Because if it is in a divisive way, things will definitely get more and more scattered. People say that one should avoid a tendency of creation of new states, because in future then there will be no limit. We'll go back to where we had all started. You know, India initially was quite scattered in history. Over a period of time, things started getting united, kingdoms came together, and then of course Sardar Patel, around the turn of independence, unified the entire country, where three kingdoms, Hyderabad, Junagadh, and Kashmir, had a dissent against unifying, and that, you know, the problem, and that's where Kashmir problem started. So are we looking at groups, group identity, collectives in a healthy way or in a divisive way? Because if it's in a divisive way, that doesn't take the democracy anywhere. Yes, but even welfare state is still a problem or a challenge to be established in a country like India. Because welfare state means really for the masses, not for those few who just shop online and do everything online and even work online, and that's all about their lives, right? Interest, social movements, and protests describe pursuit of political interests outside the party system. Now, this is where we also see divergence. Interest groups. In US, we have strong pressure groups, lobbying. That's why we have that process of lobbying. In India, we have a strong tendency of social movements and protests. Now, outside the party system means we also call them non-state actors. Okay, so how are they affecting the working of, because democracy doesn't just mean smooth and without taking into consideration. Voices of dissent would come up at some point or the other. How are you handling them? How are you making them more inclusive rather than exclusive? There is always a debate between inclusive versus the exclusive. So you have to make them more inclusive rather than exclusive. Then only you can have more synchrony in a democracy. Okay, just think about this point, because it's not easy to do it. But then, and that's why we have these interest groups, social movements, and protests. If an industry or a factory is being constructed, if it is definitely affecting not just the livelihood, but also the physical capabilities of the people, because, you know, when an industry is established, your underground source of water and fertility of the soil also gets affected. And the first people who are affected are not the urban people, but the rural people, the natives, the agricultural farmers. Now the question is, and that this is the question that has still been lurking around us, is at the cost of this environment and sustainable development, how far other kinds of development is justified? At what cost? Yes. Yes. Striking a balance, and then a state also has to work in a more strong capacity. As usually, even I'll identify the word strong, not just the political capacity, because mostly it is seen state usually working in a political capacity. State as a political actor. Even state plays around. They want divisions to be there so that they hold on to power. Shakti ka Santulan. Which was the series? I forgot. I think not Family Man. You've seen Family Man? Family Man, you saw. But there was, I think, Mirzapur or one of these series. I think that one, yeah. So in that way, one has to look into these issues. Yes, anyone else wants to ask anything from online? If you did not follow discussion, or if you did not understand the last two themes we discussed today on politics in transition, as well as representation and recognition and participation aspects. Are you all working well on your synopsis? 20 ke pehle, not 20. Before 20. Today is already 17. Yes. Yes, please unmute yourself. I call out your name. Yashi.
Present, sir.
Why people are not learning videos?
Aditi.
Present, sir.
Angela.
Yes, sir.
Just a second, let me complete this one today. Matilda. Matilda.
Yes, sir.
Yashi.
Present, sir.
Manas.
Present, sir.
Avni.
Yes, sir.
Sanya.
So present.
Dikshita.
Present, sir.
Mudit.
Present, sir.
Nidhi.
Yes, sir. Present.
Ram.
Yes, sir. Present.
Arif.
Present, sir.
Tushar.
So Tushar is present. He just called me that his laptop is hanged.
Okay, Malvisha.
Yes, sir.
Raman. Raman.
Present, sir.
Brijen.
Yes, sir.
Karan.
Present, sir.
Shreya.
Sir, Shreya is present. She is facing a network issue.
Anyone else? So, see you.